Are you truly tired of arguing with your child, having fights about practicing and why they won't just do it? Well, if you are, you've come to the right video, because I'm going to share my 5 best tips for how to get on a better playing field, with your children about practicing, how to make it a more enjoyable experience, and how to maybe trick them into liking it more. If you're new here, my name is Maggie, and the 9 to 5 Musician is all about discussing how to become a better pianist, make it more enjoyable, and also for parents to understand how to better support their children who do that themselves. So let's get into today's topic. Now, I am speaking from a little bit of a bias here because when I started playing piano, I would say that my situation aired on the side of my parents begging me to stop practicing. I am not joking, we had to set boundaries and time limits with the neighbors because they would bang on the walls. They were tired of hearing me play the piano because I would play hours on end. So all goes to say, I loved to play, whether it was playing my songs, whether it was singing, whether it was making up something. I wrote a lot of music. Whether it was playing pop songs, I had tons of books with popular music in them. I just wanted to play and be involved in music no matter what it was. So when I hear that my students are a little bit struggling or they're in a dry spell of wanting to play, I just really want to be there and help them as much as possible. So that's why I'm making this video today, to make these struggles a little bit less frequent and a little bit less difficult. So my number 1 tip is to not frame it in a way that sounds harsh or like a statement. So instead of telling your child to go practice right now, or you have to practice 25 minutes before your lesson, or even at the lesson saying, I told you to practice, when it doesn't go well, why don't you reframe it as a question with a sort of curious edge, like, oh, when did you want to practice today? Or what song do you think you're going to practice today? I really liked that one you were playing yesterday. Well, what was the name of that one? And then maybe they go show you and like, oh, you're really interested in what I'm doing. Let me show you. Or maybe you ask them, what do you want to do after you practice today? Do you want to have a snack? Do you want to go outside? So you're lumping it together. So something like this, where you're coming up with a creative way to engage in what they're doing instead of just telling them to go do something. Because I know even as an adult, if someone asks me what I'm doing, I'm more likely to share with them than if they say, you have to go do this right now. It's like, not very pleasant. So sometimes we have to get down on their level and be curious and engage in what they're doing to actually make them want to do it. So that's my first tip. My second tip sounds random, but it's important, is the location of where you put your instrument. Now, I'm fully aware that you can't put your instrument right in front of the door, and depending on the layout of where you live in a house, an apartment, or whatever, you have to think about those things logically. But if you can put your instrument or their books or something right in that it's in the view, right? They have to constantly walk by it, then they're gonna think about it. They walk by, oh, maybe I should practice. Oh, I see my music books there. It's at least getting it in their mind, right? If it's out of sight, it's out of mind. So if you can put your instrument in a very blatant area of your house that you constantly see it and constantly walk by it, your kids are probably more likely to practice, as simple as that seems. My next tip is the dip your toe in the water. So what do I mean by that? I think any adult can relate to the fact that there are some times you just don't want to do things. You don't want to respond to your email, you don't want to open up the floodgates of what's going to come through, you don't want to clean, you don't want to open the junk drawer. And whenever I don't want to do something like that, I just set literally a 2 minute timer. And I say, okay, all I have to do is do it for those 2 minutes, and then I can be done and go back to do whatever I want to do or whatever you need to do. So you set those 2 minutes, and I guarantee you when that timer goes up, you're gonna continue doing what you're doing. Once you start, you're more than likely to keep going. Starting is the hardest. Dipping your toe in, that's the hardest part. Of course, getting them to just sit down is the hardest thing. So just go with them. Make them sit down, set a little timer, 2 minutes, and I guarantee you they'll continue to want to play after it's done. But if they don't, actually let them only play for 2 minutes. Let them play for 2 minutes, 2 weeks in a row. Then the next week, sit for 5 minutes, and you can gradually build it up. It's more about building the habit of sitting down in the first place than necessarily what they're practicing if you're in a stage of really, really not wanting to practice. My next tip is slightly exclusive, I guess you could say, because it's one for either someone who has the time to sit down with their child or adaptable for someone who has multiple children. So this tip is about getting competitive. So make it a competition. For instance, if you have more than one child, get them to practice together. Even if the other child doesn't play an instrument, you can say, let's say you have Lily and Dustin. So Lily needs to practice, and you say, hey Dustin, can you go sit with Lily and listen to her and tell her 3 things you liked about her playing and 3 things you think she can improve on. Now, I don't know about you, but I was always extremely competitive with my sister, and most siblings are like that when they come into lessons. They always want to do better than the other person. So you can use that fuel against them and make them get fired up to do even better. So make it competitive. If you don't want to do this with your children or you don't have extra children, then you can do it yourself if you have 5 or 10 minutes. Go sit with them. And I guarantee you that having just an extra set of eyes on them will make them more focused and feel like they're more responsible for what they're doing than if you just walk out of the room and they can casually do whatever they want. So make it competitive and sit with them. My last tip actually comes from the writing of James Clear, if you know the book or have read it, called Atomic Habits. It's a fantastic book. I highly recommend it if you're someone who likes to be productive. So I'm taking the tip from him to lump things together. So that means like if you're trying to build a new habit, you need to lump it onto one you already have. So for instance, let's say your child comes home and every single day throws their shoes in that corner. Okay, so lump practicing in with that. Every day after I throw my shoes in the corner, I go put up my book on the keyboard. That's it. Doesn't even have to be sit down and play. So get them to do it for a week straight. Throw your shoes, don't even reprimand them for throwing their shoes. Throw your shoes and put your book on the piano. Then maybe the week after that, you lump another habit onto that. After you throw your shoes and put the book on the piano, you open to the page you want to practice this week. And then more time goes by, and you continue to lump them together until you're actually forming a steady stream of small habits that become a part of their life that actually get them to practice. So I throw my shoes in the corner, I put the book up, I open the page, and I practice, right? That seems very simple, but it's extremely effective. Now you can also do the reverse, so that's like putting things up together. You could also do the reverse in that after I practice piano, I get to something. After practice piano, I get to have a snack. After I practice piano, I get to spend 15 minutes with my mom while she's not working. After 15 minutes, I get to go outside with my brother. Something like this that feels like a true reward to them, but it's lumped together with the practicing. That's a little bit different than praising them or giving them candy, because that's a whole different road. But lumping them together with something either before or after is a surefire way to get it ingrained in their mind that it's something that they actually do on a daily basis. Okay, so I know I said it was 5 tips, but I just thought of this last one, and it's a really important one. I was actually just discussing this with my husband at a dinner that we had with some of our friends, and their children take lessons from both of us, and we were talking about the importance of going to concerts and finding identity in music. So for instance, as soon as I started going to taking piano lessons, my teacher would constantly get me tickets for front row seats to amazing classical pianists. And let me tell you, that opened my eyes to a whole world of music I didn't know existed, and to more importantly, a striving for a level of achievement that I didn't know beyond myself was possible. So if you can get your children to go to concerts, for instance, I live in Boston, you can go to a million amazing concerts here, the BSO, chamber orchestras, operas, whatever it is. Get them to go there because it makes them inspired to see that there's something greater than what they're doing. And if you can get them to believe the phrase, I am a musician, then they'll always want to play because it's a part of who they are. It's not something they do, it's something who they are. So it's imperative to them because it becomes a part of their personality. So if you can, take your children to concerts and inspire them. Well, that is it for today. I truly hope that these tips were interesting and hopefully they prove to be helpful if you try them and implement them in your own practicing or towards your children. Let me know down in the comments some of the things you do to help your children out with practicing and any further questions you might have on the topic. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.